Welcome to the Stacked Investing Podcast, where real estate meets real life. I'm your host, Greg Farricielli, bringing you the latest in investment, health, and mindset. Stay stacked. So, Shaun Surgener, welcome to the Stacked Investing Podcast, dude. I'm so excited that you're on here. And the reason is because we have a history together. I've known you for 4 to 5 years now.
At least, yeah, 4 or
Right?
5, yeah.
You called me on a listing I had when you were looking to flip some houses.
I did, yeah,
West Nashville.
we had a house on, near Harpeth Trace in Nashville that
Yes.
we were getting ready to flip, and you had a house, I think, for sale, like,
Yep.
right down the road, and we're trying to just kind of figure out an idea of just, well, one, maybe finding an agent to help us, but comps and
Yeah.
just yeah, and this is nasty mold house, which actually I recently posted a YouTube video, which we'll dive into maybe later on, but, like,
Yeah.
craziest flip I've probably ever done. I don't know if you've saw the photos of it. Uh, Probably one of the worst mold infestations of all time I think I've ever
Oh,
seen.
no, that I didn't know.
Oh no, yeah, it's awful. It's 3,200 square feet of basically just pure mold
Ugh.
everywhere. It was ridiculous. So, yeah,
Yeah, so and you're in Nashville. You moved from Nashville from LA. We kind
yep,
of met in person when you moved to Nashville, and you had recently just got married, had your
yep.
first child. So your life is significantly changed.
Oh
And then
man,
I got to know you a little bit more, and I realized all of your knowledge in the health and wellness world.
yeah,
And we connected on real estate investing, and this is definitely kind of a real estate investing podcast, but I definitely want to bring the health into this
yeah,
because I feel like it's a full spectrum. You can't I feel like you have to figure out how to do all of it, and you're such a great example of health. And we work together and trying to
yep,
get my health where it needs to be, and I love to talk about that journey too.
100%.
And I kind of want to start with where you want to start. Like, how did you get started on this? What kind of made you go this different direction with health, finance, and real estate investing?
Yeah, I mean, so giving my long story in a short span here. So I was originally a pre-med student in college. So I started off as a biochemistry major. My last year, I wasn't really sure if I was going to be a doctor or not. So I kind of switched to more of a general science so I could be eligible to go to nursing school if I wanted to do that. Basically what happened was I was a 4.0 student, graduate 4.0. I started shadowing doctors before looking to go to medical school. And I shadowed everything from anesthesiologists to cardiologists to family doctors. And it's like every single person I shadowed, it was like, I could do this. I mean, it's fine, but there was nothing about it that excited me. It just kind of felt like a job. It's like, all right, it's a high paying job. It's steady. It's secure. It's great. But there's nothing in my soul that was like, oh my God, I have to do this.
And that's
Um,
interesting because that type of work is so soul related, and you're
it
just
is.
like, I'm just not feeling it at all.
Yeah. And that's the
You
thing.
went
Every
all
doctor
the way
that
through med school and then discovered that you didn't want to do it, is what you're
I
saying.
have some friends actually that they're literally just getting out of medical school and they're just like, I hate my life. How'd you know to get out? Like, and I was just like, because what happened was every doctor I shadowed, there's two types of doctors. There's the doctors who just absolutely love what they do. And if you talk to them, they'll say, even if I made half of what I was making now, I would still just freaking do this and I love it. But then you could tell the doctors who went into it because they wanted either the high income or they just wanted security and they were just miserable. And I
Yeah,
knew deep down that the only reason I was doing it was because I wanted a high income and security. And so
because that's what you understood.
that's what I was told. I mean, that's what we're told growing up. Find a good paying job that's steady and secure, and you'll do well in life. And yeah, you will do well financially, but you're not
So,
necessarily going to do well mentally or emotionally
so tell me about that time. You're like, I really am not doing this anymore, and you quit. Like, what did that feel like, and what did you do, and how did you transition to the next phase of your journey?
Yeah, so it, that was one of the toughest decisions of my life because I spent 4 years nonstop in the library, literally studying my tail off to get that 4.0. And then to say, okay, you know what, let's just scrap all that. You start to feel like I wasted time, you know what I mean? And so at the time, I started getting into acting, and actually, I'd always wanted to be an actor since I was really little. And long story short, when I was in college, I got the opportunity to do some background on a Hannah Montana movie way back in the day. I thought it was awesome, and somehow one of my friends knew an agent. I got with an agent. My first booking was a Justin Bieber music video that before he got famous, no one knew
Oh,
who he
I
was.
gotta look that up.
Yeah, it was a One Less Lonely Girl. I mean, you don't see me a
There it
lot, but
is,
like,
listeners. One less lonely girl, Justin Bieber.
yeah. And so this is before anybody knew him. I was like telling everybody, I'm on a Justin Bieber music video. Everybody's like, who's that? And then like 6 months later, Bieber fever takes on the whole world. And anyway, so I did that. I ended up booking things with like Toby Keith's Red Solo Cup. I was in a Brad Paisley Water music video. So I did all these music videos, commercials. I did a few indie films that went to Redbox. And I was like, this is it, man. Like, acting was the first major just like passion rush like that I got back from soccer. So I mean, I actually grew up, I wanted to be a professional soccer player, and actually in high school I moved to South America to
Oh wow.
train with a semi-pro academy in Bolivia for like 5, 6 months. Anyway, so I decided, you know what? You're only young once. So I'm moving to LA. It's my dream. I'm going to be an actor. I move out there. I sign with an incredible agent and manager. I'm auditioning for leads in major TV shows and different types of films and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to be the next Tom Cruise. This is going to be awesome. And what happened was about, I would say about 6 to 9 months into it, because I moved out to LA with no job. I had $400 in my pocket when I arrived. I did not know a single person other than a friend of mine back here in like Nashville, Memphis area introduced me to a lady who said I could crash on her couch for the first month for free until I like got my feet wet. And so I literally just put my stuff in the back of my old beat up Jetta that I had back in the day, drove out to LA, arrived, just kind of like,
Wow.
okay, like what do I do now? And I'm just working random, just like pickup jobs. I was doing a lot of like event marketing and just a day or two here or there, like
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
And that was one of the scariest moments of my life because it was just like you got $400, you're living in a big city, you're like, what do you do? And I never left the house because I couldn't afford to, so I literally was just applying for jobs like crazy. And I started getting some pickup jobs here and there. About 6 to 9 months into it, I started realizing that I started seeing all these guys in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they still hadn't made it. They still had like 3, 4 roommates, and I'm like, oh man, I'm struggling to, I was eating on $5 a day. So what I had to do, because I was so broke, I created this huge spreadsheet of every item in the grocery store that I'd want to buy. And I would look at how many servings, what the cost was, and the cost per serving. So I told myself I only had $5 a day to eat. And so I would basically give myself $1 for breakfast, 1 to 2 for lunch, 2 to 3 for dinner. And I would just go through the spreadsheet and just kind of piece together, okay, 2 eggs is, 60 some. So I think it was like 2 slices of toast and like an egg, and something was like 90 some cents for breakfast. And then,
Wow.
yeah, so I basically itemized this thing to spend as little as possible. My
That is
first year in L,
smart.
yeah, my first year in LA, I think I made $19,000 and managed to save 9,000 of it. So it's
Wow.
crazy. But what happened was, so where it pivoted was, I'm auditioning for all this stuff. But about 6, 9 months into it, I kind of really hit a rough place. It's like I started to realize that like this might not be what I thought it was. I'm broke as all get out. I'm freaking struggling. I'm not happy. And my parents actually ended up splitting around that time. And that I was always a big family person. And that was like, obviously kind of devastating too. And I just remember going for a run one night, just out in the streets, and I just was in a bad place. I just really did not like things. And I just remember like running and crying and just being like, I can't do this anymore. Like I've always been so ambitious. Like I've always known that like I want to do something really incredible and really big. And I'll put in whatever work I need to. Whatever it takes, I'm willing to do it. I just don't know what that is for me. And
Yeah.
so that was the moment where I woke up the next day and said, I'm changing it all around. I'm going to understand how to build wealth. I want to understand how to get the physique I've always wanted. I always wanted to be that like Abercrombie model that had that like chiseled 6 pack and chest, and everybody's gawking over. And I'm like, I'm going to get all that. And I'm going to sit down and I'm going to really study in depth how to build wealth, how to build health, physique. I want to understand how happiness and mission and purpose works. And that was the beginning of my journey, basically.
Wow, that's awesome. It's like who said it? Jim Carrey. It's like I wish everybody would just do this acting and thing just so they could see, get everything they want, just to see
Right,
that it's
realize
not going to give them the
yeah,
happiness.
no, it's
I have
it's
a I
mhm,
have a short, very similar story because I played music for years,
mhm.
and the same thing with me. People are playing in the bars, making like $100 a night. They're 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're just not. Sometimes you just have to understand, like, do you love it that much? Is it willing to struggle, or do you like that lifestyle? I was similar to you. I didn't like the lifestyle anymore. I couldn't retire off of it. I'm like, how do I
Yeah.
retire?
I've got a I guess a stepfather-in-law who also an actor, greatest guy of all time. I mean, he's probably in his, I don't know, maybe late 50s, early 60s. This guy has this, itty bitty tiny apartment. It's pretty nasty in LA. But like, dude, this guy's so happy. He didn't care about money. He just loves acting so much. He doesn't care if he's broke or has money. He just so and for me, it's like I love acting. I play piano, I do music too. But for me, it was like as much as I love those things, I just I didn't love it enough to be okay with like just living in a roach infested apartment, my entire life. Like I want to travel, I want to experience nice things, I want to have a family, and I want to build.
Yeah,
So
100%. Well, that's a great story. So I kind of want to get super nerdy on health right now.
okay, yeah,
I feel like our listeners, we need to mix that up with,
sure.
because right now everybody's just so stressed out.
Yeah,
Everybody is just in a fight or flight mode.
yeah.
So over time, I've gone older. I've always been super healthy, but like the last 3 or 4 years, moving to Florida, eating all this wonderful Italian food, it's just like my body just can't handle all that anymore.
Yeah, well, and then the closer you get to the coast, there's something about it that makes you just want to be healthier. I don't know, like I
It
haven't looked at
does.
the
It
data to see
feels
if it
so much
actually,
better. We were
yeah,
walking on the beach this morning just to get grounded. We were like, it's the
yeah,
first day where it's like 70 degrees finally in January, where it's supposed to be. And
yeah.
we went into the gym and we went there, and like I've got, more than half my steps in the morning.
Nice, yeah,
So tell me like your approach on it coming out of the med school lens and where you're
yeah.
taking it to and what you're.
Yeah, yeah, and here's the thing with health and nutritional science and stuff. It's so many people want to black and white it, like, oh, this food is bad, this is not good for you. Only do this, stay away from these things. And so what's really challenging is that it's not so black and white. There are a few things that are black and white in health and fitness, but there's a lot of gray area, and it's all so so here's my background. I think because I was originally a biochemistry major, I spent a lot of time like studying, in labs and scientific studies. I am all about, scientific data. There's a lot of people who do what you'd call like anecdotal things. So for instance, like, oh, well, cut out carbs and I lost weight. Great. Well, you can do that and you can lose weight. But then the data is, do you have to cut out carbs to lose weight? So everything that I teach and do is all based on human randomized control trials. Now, without getting too scientific with it, all people really need to know is that human randomized control trials are really the gold standard of scientific study. And that is because, well, one, it's in humans, because not everything that happens in a lab or in rats translates to the human population. But the other thing too is that randomized control trials also equate for a lot of variables. So just to kind of give you a quick example, let's take sugar, for instance, okay? Because obviously sugar is something that, a lot of people want to straw man on this and say like, oh, so you're going to promote, eating sugar. It's like, no, I'm not promoting eating sugar. But if you look at a lot of scientific studies that show that sugar causes inflammation, it's really bad for you and all this stuff, right? When you actually look at the data of the study, how the study was set up and the data of it, a lot of them do not equate for things like calories. So what tends to happen is people who eat a lot of sugar tend to overcalorie a lot because sugar is not very satiating, and it's very palatable. So it's very, it just tastes really good and all that stuff. So people tend to eat more calories. More calories mean you gain weight, and gaining weight, obviously decreases health. But when you do a human randomized control trial and you have two people in a fat loss environment, one eating high sugar, one not, both parties reduce inflammation, blood sugar goes down, And so anyway, so my whole take on this is I like to look at the scientific data, of like what does the data truly show on human randomized control trials, because that is the only scientific data that truly matters for health.
So out of that data, let's talk about what's black and white. You said there's a couple things that are black and
I can,
white.
mm,
I mean, is there something close that we could talk about black and white, and then
yeah,
maybe the rest could be so variable?
yeah, right. Okay, so here's a few things that we do know. Working out in general improves health, right? So weight training, cardiovascular training, all that stuff, just in general, is good for your overall health. It's also just really good for your mind. There's a thing called neuroplasticity. So when you start talking about, a lot of people are stressed, they're overloaded, they're just in fight or flight mode. There's a thing called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to handle and adapt to stress and change. And what you find is that the more someone engages in physical exercise, whether it's cardiovascular exercise or weight training, resistance training, neuroplasticity increases, meaning that your ability to handle stress and adapt to change gets better over time. So, working out in general, independent of fat loss or even what you're eating, will improve health. And I will also
Right.
just say, go ahead. Mhm.
No, please. So I was just gonna say, like your inner age can actually decrease over time instead of increase over time. I've seen people
Yeah.
with that method thinking that way and doing those things where they actually body turns to be more of a younger than an older as
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I mean, not just even from a biochemistry level, but just from a mental health, emotional level, working out in general just improves all qualities of life. And in fact, I tell people that I believe that fitness is the catalyst to everything else in life. And that is because if you look at, so I do a lot of umbrella like life coaching, so like peak performance and stuff. There's a thing called priming, which is learning how to change the way you feel based on an external stimulus. So, in other words, the way that we move, breathe, and talk affects how we feel. It affects how we perform. And there's all kinds of really cool studies I have in like different stuff that shows that like even simple things like when you are holding a certain temperature of beverage and you meet someone new, that can change how you perceive a person if they're asking a lot of questions. Or if you're sitting in a room and you smell cleaning products, you're more likely to clean up after yourself. Just all kinds of things. But moving in general is just a major catalyst to mental health. It's also for just actual health itself. So that's pretty black and white. Working out is good for you. Other things that are black and white is when it comes to weight loss. So, one of the absolute greatest things that you can do for your health is to be lean. Without getting too nerdy on this, basically, a lot of things that people really talk about, like when a lot of people use what I would call like nebulous scare words, like inflammation, or just things like that. You'll hear all kinds of different things like say inflammation. So when you lose weight and you're at a lean body mass, that in and of itself will improve everything from like blood pressure to blood sugar to cholesterol. Now, obviously, there's going to be variables like certain people who maybe have like a certain genetic predisposition. Maybe no matter how much you work out or how lean you get, there will always be some of those people who just genetic wise, you can't control certain things. It won't fix all your problems.
Yeah, the more body you have, that's really just like dead space, if you will, is just
Yeah.
available for cancers and disease and stuff like that.
Exactly. And so when you hear people talk about inflammation, oh, this particular food causes inflammation. What's really fascinating is that individual foods or chemicals or compounds, or when I say like compounds, like sugar or something like that, when you control for calories and you get into a fat loss environment, a lot of these things that they say cause inflammation, like, oh, increase in sugar causes inflammation. That's actually not true when you're in a fat loss environment. And when you look at human randomized control trials, even people on high sugar diets reduce inflammation in their body because they're when they're in the fat loss environment. And the reason being is that people don't understand the difference between what's called systematic inflammation and what you'd call like temporary or localized inflammation. And so the thing that really causes the most inflammation in the body that's long term. So once again, I don't want to get too scientific with this, but like the true inflammation in our body, the kind that's like long term inflammation that's bad for you, A lot of that is derived from excess fat tissue, adipose tissue. And that is because fat tissue releases what's called adipokines in the body, and adipokines are inflammatory. And so when I hear words like inflammation or toxicity or something like that, I always I tend to try to get really specific with them. But I'll tell you this, like, I'll tell you one thing. You know what will cause a mass amount of inflammation? CO2 in your system, oxidative stress, and like high blood pressure. You know what that causes that?
What?
Exercise. Wait a second. But if inflammation's so bad and oxidative stress, oh my God, that sounds terrible. That's because when you work out, there is a localized spike in
Yep.
inflammation, CO2. But when you look at human randomized control trials, people who exercise and work out live longer. And so
Right.
that's why I say nutrition and fitness, and you hear all these scare words. It's not always that. When people are like, oh, avoid this because it has this compound in it. And it's not that simple, you know?
So if I'm someone that wants to lose weight, like, I
Yes.
know your program, you have your 90 days, 12
Yeah.
to 4 pounds, and obviously that's variable per person. Like,
Right.
what advice are you giving them? Are you showing them like certain calorie count or
Yeah.
certain amount of activity, or how are you guiding them through that?
Yeah. So one of the other things that is very black and white, other than just, exercising is good for your health, is fat loss. And I know that's kind of tough because you hear a lot of people going back and forth on like this and that. And so there is no get so fat loss in and of itself is simple, but it's also very multi-layered. I'm gonna explain that. It's simple because it really comes down to energy balance. If you have more energy going into your system than going out, it's like a balloon. If I blow air into a balloon, what happens to that balloon?
It's going to expand.
It expands. And that is
Yeah.
because more energy is going into that balloon than going out. A calorie is just a unit of energy. And so it's basic. Yeah. So it's a unit of energy. I don't want to get too detailed with that. But basically, if more energy goes into your system than goes out, you expand. If more energy goes out than goes in, you contract. And if you have a similar amount of energy going in and out, you stay the same. Okay, so fat loss actually is just energy balance, and that's all it is. A lot of people get too detailed with like meal timing and carbs and this and that. It's very simple. If you equate for calories and protein and you get those right, you lose weight, independent of sugar, alcohol. I hear things like, oh, my hormones have shifted. Um, None of that stuff matters if you are in an energy deficit. And so what I do is I help people lose 12 to 24 pounds in 90 days, eating whatever they want, spending less than 2 or 3 hours a week working out. So because a lot of the people that I work with are very busy professionals. They're doctors,
Right.
attorneys, entrepreneurs, family people, people who aren't in their 20s who can spend 2 hours a day, 6 days a week in the gym. That's great. I mean, if you can do that, great. But most of us have families or really busy professional careers.
Yeah.
We,
It's
mhm,
like a lifestyle because
yeah,
like, those people aren't going to be able to do that forever, right? What they're doing is just
no,
not sustainable. And that's the
right.
big thing for me. It's like it's making the new habits with this information that I just want to do forever. And if I want to indulge on a ridiculously fat meal, I can do that if
Yeah.
I'm doing all these other things the right way.
Exactly, and that's kind of my thing is that, like, I truly believe if you can't do it for 30 years, don't do it for 30 minutes. There's nothing wrong with 75 hard or keto or paleo or intermittent fasting or Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig. They all work. They're all tools to get you to fat loss, all right? To get you into an energy deficit. But what I tell people is there are a lot of tools, and part of what I do is helping people understand what tool is best for them. Because for
Right.
some people like myself, I don't want to cut out carbs mainly because I like carbs and I feel like crap if I cut out carbs.
Sure.
But regardless of the tool, the black and white thing is there is no getting around being in an energy deficit. That is there's no getting around it. Like that is black and white. There's nothing gray in that. Now, how you want to get there can vary.
Yeah, that's why
Um,
diets, it's like, yeah, cool, you lost weight, but like as soon as you throw that back into your diet because you just did it for a short amount of
yeah,
time, you could even gain more weight than it is before you had. So if you can't
absolutely.
do it for 30 years, don't do it for 30 days. That is super Amazing to hear.
Yeah. And I think it's also because it's the same philosophy I have even with like investing.
Yeah.
It's like anything. It's like any
Yeah.
asset class. The shorter the time frame, the riskier the asset. Even housing, like I don't want to dive into that, but like the idea that flipping a house is riskier than a buy and hold for 30 years. You have a higher chance of losing money on a flip than you do for buying a house, even if you overpay for the house and hold on to it for
Yep.
30 years.
Yep.
And that's just how it is.
Awesome. So what are you working on right now?
Man, everything. No, so obviously I have my own real estate and all that's what I'm doing. But the big things now is obviously expanding my business. So a couple years ago, I actually had the great privilege of working with one of the CEOs of the YMCA.
Oh, wow.
And so he came to me basically for a full recompass of he wanted health and fitness, he wanted mindset, he wanted to get back into the dating world. He had lost his wife a few years back and wanted to get back into dating. So I helped him everything from health and fitness. He was a guy who hired tons of trainers, nutritionists, and just really hated working out. And I think he had seen some of my content, followed me for a little bit, and just loved my philosophies. And so I worked with him. He did a 1-year program with me. We dove into everything, and it went so well that he actually brought me back on to do some executive coaching for some of their C-suite. And now I also do some independent consulting for them on how they are branding and approaching fitness in their area. And so I'm
Wow.
really helping them change the way they approach health and fitness, and just because he loves the mindset sector.
Yeah.
Because one thing that's challenging, even though fat loss is just energy balance, it's not that simple because there's a lot of emotional layers. Fitness, health, food, there's a lot of emotional hiding. And so people have a lot of fears and insecurities and also just pain that they have in life. And one of the easiest ways of masking it or over or just hiding it or just not feeling that is food. And so
Yeah.
that's what makes it so it's so you can tell someone, oh, eat less and move more. And technically that is some of the general aspect of how you lose weight. If you keep eating less and moving more, you're going to lose weight at some point.
Well, health starts at a psychological point anyway, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like for the last 2 years I was talking about, I was like, yeah, I just won't eat this. But like it did not work. Once I
Yeah.
decided to say, hey, this is the line I'm gonna draw,
Yeah.
and that's when everything changed.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so I add a lot of psychology and just really helping people understand why they do what they do,
Yeah.
why they're making those choices, but also how to create more of a balance. Because it's like, I don't think the answer is never have another cookie for the rest of your life. Maybe some people can do that. And there are a few people who do keto and been on it for 30 years and they freaking love it. But like, it's such a rare person.
Not me.
Um, the issue is when people cut something out, the minute I tell you you can't have something, now you really want it. And you spend all your time fighting cravings and all that.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is like, let's create balance. Let's show you how to have a pizza night or how to have that ice cream sundae, still lose weight, still get an optimal health. Because I can promise you that if you are active, you're equating for calories, you get good protein intake and you have good fiber, I can promise you that like that ice cream sundae that you're having here and there is probably having such a little effect on your overall health. It's probably
Yep.
so insignificant it almost doesn't even matter.
You can't like indulge on every single meal and every single dessert like
Right.
it's your last meal.
Right. Right.
Well, it's like you don't always have to love every meal. It's like sometimes I get tired of eating my tuna fish packets and stuff like that.
Right.
But
Right. Right.
yeah, I'd rather do that than just feel terrible all the time and
Yeah.
gain weight.
Yeah. So what I do is help them understand caloric intake and protein intake. Because really, if you equate for those two things, that's pretty much the biggest thing that is going to get people the fat loss and building muscle. And in fact, I would say 90, I mean, I'm making this number up, but like probably like 95+% of people, if you just understand calories and protein and you get some good
Yeah.
exercise and stuff, that is going to solve most of your physique challenges like weight loss, building muscle. And by doing that, by leaning down almost every major biomarker
Yep.
from inflammation to cholesterol to blood pressure to blood sugar, more times than not is going to improve. Unless there's like a genetic predisposition, that's a whole different thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are you working on with your YouTube channel right now? I see that it's been like blowing up
Yeah.
and your channel is just going crazy right now. What are
Thank
you
you. Thank you. Yeah.
focusing on?
So I have a YouTube channel that I've kind of built. It is more of a finance channel right now.
Okay.
I'm actually getting ready to launch a fitness channel as well. it's a lot.
It's a
Content
lot of
is
money.
great. It's a
Right.
ton of work. I don't think people real. It's not uncommon to spend a minimum of 10 to 15 hours per video between doing the research, figuring out what are people searching for, shooting the content, making sure the content's getting edited and created, and then posting. It's a lot. And so, yeah, I've been doing a lot of YouTube. I've gotten some great traction. I've just about hit 2,000 subscribers, which, in the grand scheme of things is pretty tiny, but it's starting to make some traction. I had a video recently pop off pretty good. I think it's almost at 14,000 views. It's basically the smartest route to $10,000 a month in 2024.
Oh, wow.
And it's
I would love to
basically
know more about that.
yeah, so it's basically a blueprint and outline of really when I do a lot of kind of finance kind of stuff with people. It's really what I think is the outline of the way you approach either entrepreneurship or 9 to 5. So in other words, the general steps are very first thing is just get a job, find a skill set that you have, get a job. For some people, it might be very
Generate
low.
income.
Yeah, just get a base income. This is just
Yeah.
meant to pay bills. Like it might mean working at Target or being a manager at Best Buy, or maybe you work at Verizon, or just something that pays the most that you can find right now. You're not going to get rich. You're probably not going to make much more than 15, 20 bucks an hour unless you have maybe a certain skill set pays you 60 to 100K a year, but you start with that. The next thing is you have to get into a 10 to 20% cash flow surplus. And I explained that for the next step. This is important because we got to make sure that you have the foundational principles of creating a positive surplus. So you're saving money. Now, the third step is identifying your high ticket skill set. To really get to the point where you're making $10,000 a month plus, you you instead of trying to work a gazillion hours, you got to figure out what is a problem that you can solve that pays you more for your time. Because you don't get paid for time, you get paid for the size of the problem that you bring in an amount of time.
Yep.
And so one of the things that you have to think about is, okay, like, what do you do? What can you do? So I would, start doing research on, like, could be anything from real estate agent to maybe you have a niche and maybe you know a lot of languages, you're really good at math, or you're
Yeah. Everybody has a gift to teach somebody something.
something. Yeah. Or if you're just like, I don't want to teach, I don't have any skills, then like even a high skill set like sales or copywriting, or maybe it's designing websites, but it's got to be something that doesn't take up, ideally you don't have to go back to school for 4 to 6+ years to get a high, you find something else. But the idea is you find a high ticket skill set that now you can take that surplus and either start investing into the knowledge and getting the accreditations or the schooling or whatever you need to, or if you already have the skill set, you're using that money to start basically pumping into your business to buy leads or to just grow your business or whatever you need. And then once you start to get your business up to where you're making more part-time than you do full-time at your job, then you start to scale out of your full-time job because you're making more per hour. And then eventually, as you're in a surplus of $10,000 a month plus, you're dumping everything into assets that are generating cash flow and or appreciating to get you stability and continue to expand to 20K a month and plus.
Yeah. Awesome. I'd love to share that with the listeners for sure. I think
Yeah,
there's
yeah. I'll
a lot
send
of
a link.
value
Yeah,
in that.
it's a great video. Yeah, so I'm doing the YouTube. I'm getting ready to launch a fitness YouTube as well pretty soon, where I dive a lot more in. I've got actually a free Facebook group that people can join. I'll send you the link too. It's, if you follow me on Facebook, Shaun Surgener, it's a weight loss mastery. Once a week I do a live where I dive into things like metabolism and aging. A lot of people feel like, hey, since I've hit 40, my metabolism is crap and I can't eat like I used to, and I just gain weight just looking at food. So I really dive into what does the human randomized control trials. So what very interesting is that metabolism stays exactly the same from ages 18 to 60. Now someone's going to say, well, that can't be true because I look at food and I gain weight now. Like, how's that possible? Well, once again, without going into crazy detail, if you look at lean body mass compared to metabolism, from 18 to 60, it stays the same. So what happens is as we age, we lose muscle mass if we're not actively building muscle and all that. So what can happen is if you're losing muscle and you're moving less, because statistically, that's when you look at data, People move less as they age. We become more sedentary. We sit at desks all day. So when you equate for moving the same amount and you keep the same amount of muscle, metabolism stays the same. But if you lose muscle over time because you're not weightlifting, you're not training, when you lose muscle, your absolute metabolism does decrease. But on a per gram basis of muscle mass to metabolism, it's still the same. And
Right, you
so
just
as
have less
long,
muscle mass.
you say what?
Yeah, it's just like you have less muscle mass, so
Yeah,
obviously your
yeah.
metabolism. Yep.
The less muscle you have, the slower your metabolism.
Yep.
70% of all calories burned in a day happens at rest. Working out only equates to about 10% of calories burned in a day. And people stress, so, oh my God, I need to work out more. I need to work out more. I mean, yeah, work out as much as you can. But in terms of a fat loss perspective, it's such an tiny, incredibly small piece of the puzzle of fat loss. It really is derived mainly from nutrition. But
Yeah,
working
that's
out
why
does
some
help.
people. Yeah, that's why some people can do cardio all the time and they lose nothing, and some
Right.
people don't do anything and they drop weight.
I've had people come to me. I don't get it, man. I work out 5, 6 days a week. I work out for an hour a day and I'm not losing weight. And it's just because like, and they'll say things like, I'm only doing 1 or 2 cheat days. And so the minute I hear that, I'm like, all right, so we got to dive into these cheat days because like that one cheat day could be completely erasing the
Annihilate your
entire,
entire week. Yeah.
yes, man, when people have cheat days, it is not uncommon for people to be plowing 4 or 5 thousand calories in a cheat day. And I'm telling you, that will completely negate the entire week's progress.
For me, a cheat day is like something I want to eat. So the other day I was going to a restaurant. I couldn't wait to go there. So I had like
Yeah.
a shake for breakfast,
Yep.
nothing for lunch. And then I still only ate like half my dinner. I'm like, this is all right. I still got to,
Yeah,
and then I got to enjoy it the next day too. And
man.
normally I would have just destroyed,
Yeah.
10,000 calories that day.
Oh man. Now I'm
Oh,
a major sweet tooth. I every night's got to be like I had a little bit of Ben and Jerry's ice cream last night. It's always got to be a cookie, ice cream, something. And
oh
so
yeah.
when you understand the science of energy balance, you can eat whatever you want, keeping high protein, and it becomes like a budget. And
Yeah.
so you get to decide each day how you want to use your budget. And
Yep.
so that's what I teach people is how to become so much more flexible with things because that really is what keeps people not consistent long term typically is that like, when you have to get, cut out things that you love and crave, you only have so much willpower for so long.
Yeah. It's now you can't do it for 30 years, that's for sure.
Yeah, so unless you have something like a doctor's told you, like you've got cancer, and if you don't stop smoking today, you're toast. Maybe that one moment, there's so much pain in that specific moment that it causes you to never do it again, right? Just like we talked about our pain thresholds. You and I both had that moment in time where the pain got so great, we said, that's it, no more. It's
Yep.
got to change. And that was your and I's both moment that
Yep.
changed our life.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can get there and you can say I'll cut out carbs and it happens for it's just it's very rare. Like, so I
Yeah. I
try to
mean,
balance.
it's like now I log all my food.
Yeah.
I have a habit tracker. I make sure that I think there's 20 things I make sure I get done every day. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
it makes such a big difference. Now even the habit tracker, I'm starting to like forget a day, but I remember to still do everything.
yeah,
So that's the goal, is to create these habits, to be mindful of like, okay, if I eat that whole entire thing, I don't need to eat that whole thing right now.
right. Yeah,
And just realize it. Like I didn't know how many calories I was really eating, so I started counting them. I probably threw 5, 6,000,
oh
seven
yeah.
thousand a day.
Well, yeah, and I'll get people too to be like, well, I don't eat a lot. And because I hear people say I don't eat a lot and I'm not losing weight, they're looking at visual size of food. Yeah, they're not
Right.
walking around with a freaking all you can eat like buffet plate that's like towering over, falling everywhere. Sometimes even healthy foods,
Mhm.
things that are really good for you are very calorie dense. And so if you took photos of your food, you might be like, look, I'm not eating hordes of food. I'm not pigging out. And they're right, they're not. But when you actually get very deliberate and conscious about it and you start looking at, how many calories and you start equating for this stuff, you realize people like, wow, I had no idea how
Yeah.
many calories I was eating.
Yeah. When we
you
cook
know,
food now, we leave all the wrappers out on the counter,
yep.
and we make sure we scan all of them.
Yep. Yeah, it's the awareness when I work with people get amazed at like I had no idea I was
Yeah.
consuming this much. And, because so many things are either on autopilot
Yep.
or, you know, like avocados, super healthy for you, super good. And I would never tell someone don't eat avocados. They're fantastic for you. But there's a lot of calories in an avocado and they're not
Yeah.
always that filling. And
Right.
so, you know, um, there's just all kinds of things that are very healthy for you. Or like nuts. Oh man, I cannot tell you how many people, it's easy to grab, a couple handfuls at a time throughout the day. And man, I can't tell you how many people,
1,000 calories. Yeah.
yeah, 500,000 calories easily, and people don't even realize because they're not that satiating sometimes. So yeah, it's just I really help bring a lot of awareness. I have a lot of clients who travel all the time, because the other thing too
Yeah.
with what I do is
Yeah.
like some people are like, well, I don't have time to meal prep and do like Instagram worthy, meal prepping. And I have clients who do nothing but eating out. I have clients that meal prep. And so once again, it comes down to you have to have something specifically tailored to you. If you
Yep.
try to go into Men's Fitness Magazine or Women's Health and you're following Hugh Jackman's Wolverine diet where he's doing chicken breast and broccoli 6 times a day, working out 2 hours every day for 6 days, like that works for him because he's getting paid to do it, and
Yeah.
he has a whole.
If you're
Mhm.
training for a competition or something and
Right.
you're sure you're gonna have to do those things, but that's not a lifestyle. That's just a
Right.
period of
And so
time.
what I do is help people understand based on your current life, your food preferences, how much you can realistically work out. Oh, I'll try to work out 5 times. No, 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 no. What can you realistically do? Is it two
Yeah.
times a week? Let's learn how to hit your goals doing 2 times a week.
Yeah.
Let me show you what you need to focus on if you only have 2 days a week, 30,
And it's so
45 minutes.
interesting. So when
Mhm.
when we started working out, like I was doing 1 day a week, and now I'm doing 2 days a week, and I'm doing 3 days of Muay Thai. But
Nice.
now I'm even going to the gym on Saturdays because I
Yeah.
just feel so good. It's like the
It,
momentum is there. It's like I stop
yeah.
there for like even if it's like 20 minutes just to like get my heart rate up and like lift something with no kind of very unintentional, just going in
Oh,
there
yeah.
and
People don't
it's
understand like how powerful. I mean, that's the thing. Like it always like, it even myself, because people are like, oh my God, how do you stay so motivated all the time to always like work out? It's not that I love just like, oh my God, look at this
right.
dumbbell. I get to curl. It's not that I just like love curling dumbbells. You know what I mean?
No,
That's
right.
not it. It's like, in the beginning, it was like, when I was a lot younger, it was vanity, right? It was like, man, if I get that 6 pack, I'll get the hot
Yeah.
girl. And like, but
Yeah.
then what happened was is once I got the 6 pack and the great physique, what I realized is that I didn't have more girls fly. If anything, I just had more guys wanting to talk to me, like, "Hey, bro, you look pretty good." So I was like,
Well,
"Okay, well, that didn't work." But what happened was, in the event of getting the physique, the just the how much I had grown in knowledge and habit and
yeah.
discipline. What I realized was the 6 pack and the physique that I got. That wasn't the real prize. What it was I myself had changed, and I realized how much it affected the
Yeah.
way I saw the world, my mindset, how I felt every day. And now what it's about, like, I want to get even better results, but it's not because it's just like, oh my God, look at me. It's just like I realize how much my life changes when I put that first. Because when I work on myself and you walk out of that gym, you feel like you can conquer the world. Your belief
Yeah.
systems change, the way that you interpret the stresses that happen to you are different. I remember listening to, I think it might be listening to like a David Goggins interview one time. And like, I don't know people who don't know David Goggins. This guy runs like literally he would be like, I'm gonna go run 100 miles right now, like just kill some time. Like this guy's insane. But like I remember him talking with somebody on an interview about how like when you've ran for like 50 plus miles and you're done, you don't give a crap. Anything could happen. You don't even care anymore because
Yeah.
you worked on yourself. Like even when bad things happen, you're just like, whatever. You know what I
Well,
mean?
you're in a better frame of mind to
Yeah,
be able to handle things. So your stress levels also way down too.
absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know, like the first part of my like I block my calendar and I consider the first part of my day is like the health part of the day.
yeah.
And then like the middle part is like the wealth part of the day. And then after that, it's everything else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, I would say, for people that are listening, because I would 95%, I keep using that number, but like almost all people that work with me primarily are wanting fat loss. I have a few people who need to gain weight or want to build more muscle, because look, more muscle equals faster metabolism, but for people who are listening, I would say be very cautious of, if you're going to study someone or listen to people, make sure that to really try to refrain people who get very specific on like, this is bad, don't do this. It's not quite that simple. It's really, and I hear this a lot from like naturopaths, chiropractors and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these people don't have any knowledge or anything. And I'm not trying to say these people are awful or evil, nothing like that. But typically people have things to sell. And so, but when you really study from like people who have PhDs in nutritional science, and you really get to like the highest tiered people who are specialized in nutritional science, you will find that it's not that black and white. So when you start hearing people say like, oh, broccoli has this compound in it, and this compound causes this, and all this, like, really, really be careful about that stuff, because it's the biggest things you need to focus on is stay active. That will improve health. Lose weight. I mean, seriously, just being active and losing weight solves a lot of freaking problems. And really all you need to focus on, don't worry about meal timing, don't worry about carbs, alcohol. It really comes down to just calories and protein. If you get those two things right, and I can show you, I can send all kinds of human randomized control trials, everybody from eating high sugar diets or low fat diets, regardless of the diet. When you equate for calories and protein, weight loss happens at the exact same rate, regardless of meal timing, what type of food they eat, anything like that. It reduces inflammation because you're reducing fat tissue in the body. It reduces insulin resistance. So if you want to improve insulin resistance, lose weight, even on high sugar diets, people who are diabetic or in a fat loss environment, even on high sugar diets, will improve blood sugar levels, unless it's like type 1 diabetes, which is genetic diabetes. But I would just say for people, balance, find something that works for you, works for your lifestyle, your psychology, the foods that you love, and just try to be weary of, there's a lot of scare words in the health world nowadays, and so they'll yell out a certain compound or toxicity or insulin resistance, hormones, and I'm not saying those things don't exist. Hormones, they exist, hormone imbalance and all that stuff. But for all, especially the women who are 40 plus with hormonal shifts, I just want them to know that there are tons of human randomized controlled trials that show that sex hormones, progesterone, testosterone, all that stuff, estrogen, that stuff has no effect on fat loss. Now, it has effects on a lot of other things, like how you feel, maybe hunger, cravings, things like that. But that is actually also relevant, but that's a whole nother topic. So I'm not going to dive in. This is where I nerd out.
Well, I really appreciate all the knowledge you dropped for
Yeah, of
sure.
course.
Definitely want to have you back on. I want to dig more into the real estate investing. I want to dig
Yeah,
back into your finance.
absolutely.
There's so much to unpack here. Where could people find you? You did mention your YouTube. Why don't you tell
Yeah,
them?
so I'm on YouTube. So Shaun Surgener, it's SHAUN, and then Surgener, SURGE, like Surge, and then NER. So SURGENER. YouTube, I've got a great finance channel. I teach everything from how to create budgets, a little bit of like psychology of money. I dive into entrepreneurship, how to get to your first 10K a month plus. I also dive into things like real estate investing, stock investing, and different types of investments and things. On Facebook, add me on Facebook for those of you who are into fitness. I've got a free weight loss mastery group where I dive into a lot of myths and fallacies around weight loss, aging, metabolism, what you should focus on, things like that. So I'll add some links to there. And then I'm on TikTok. I'm pretty much on Instagram. So everything's just
Awesome.
Shaun Surgener right now. I'm getting ready to launch a specific fitness Instagram, a specific YouTube channel as well. So I've got my team that's kind of helping me kind of get all that together, because it's a lot. And on
A
top of like
lot of
I
work.
coach, I mean, I have a lot of clients I coach, doctors, attorneys, executives, entrepreneurs, and so I've got the new baby, family. I'm the head chef in the house, and so it's like I've got my own real estate portfolio I'm trying to grow. It's every
Yeah.
day is just a whirlwind, but
Well, awesome, man. I can't wait to catch up further on the next one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me, man. This was great.
It's wonderful.